Good morning, good afternoon, and even in some cases, good evening to all of the participants in this panel discussion session. Thank you so much for joining us and for the interest in this particular session here in the industry track of GeoWeek 2020. So we're going to be discussing public-private collaborations. I'm fortunate to have a very diverse group of panelists that come from around the world, and I'll introduce them in a second. But I think what I want to start with is first to just set the context for this particular session. So the very nature of the space sector has always meant that there needed to be a strong public-private collaboration. The projects undertaken have always been high risk. And in fact, many of the businesses that we find operating today have actually benefited from historic collaborations, either through the adoption of technology and innovation, or through having their engineers, their scientists, their founders that have gained experience through participation and collaboration in public-private projects. However, not many of these collaborations and these projects gain the media attention that we have seen perhaps recently in the NASA SpaceX Dragonfly launch. So our objective for this particular session is to explore some of the more recent collaborations, getting a diverse set of views from across the world, with the idea being that we get a sense of these projects from a use case or a case study point of view, but in particular, understand their broader societal benefits as well as their impact on the broader space ecosystem. And so it is absolutely my honor to welcome some of the panelists into the session, starting off with Arnold Huffman, who's from PCI Geomatics in Canada. Arnold, thank you for joining. I know it's very early in the morning on your side. Thank you for the dedication to GeoWeek 2020. Mr. Alex Fortescue, sitting here in South Africa from Maxar, responsible for sales, Middle East and Africa. Dr. Nkurunziza, hailing from the Regional Center for Mapping in Kenya, and really looking after mapping for some of his member states in East Africa. And then Mr. Xin Pei from China, a company called SenseTime Technologies. So with that intro and without spending too much time, I then want to hand over to each of our panelists who are going to share their unique experiences from their company's point of view in their various public-private collaborations and highlighting the use cases and the benefits to broader society. And I'd like to then kick off with Arnold, who will talk about his experiences from PCI Geomatics. Arnold, over to you.
Thank you very much, Lee, for that nice introduction. As Lee said, my name is Arnold Huffman, and I'm VP Corporate Development for PCI Geomatics, a company I've been with for 22 years. I've had a total of 27 years in Earth observation, which is my passion, including a couple of years in each of academic and government. So I guess you could say I've seen the world through multiple lenses. Brief introduction about PCI. We're a Canadian Earth observation and geospatial software firm. We've been in business 37 years. We have customers around the world, hundreds of clients in over 100 countries. On the general topic of collaborations, in my experience, the best interactions, the ones that move the state of EO art forward and reap the most benefits for all of the parties, is when collaboration occurs. As an example, at PCI Geomatics, we formalized collaboration on the academic side through our Academic Alliance program. Two of these examples that are relevant to our virtual host being South Africa are Stellenbosch University and Friedrich Schiller University in Jena, Germany, who used our GXL product to map and quantify habitat change on a tree-by-tree basis in Kruger National Park. As part of my introduction, I'm pleased and excited to announce that PCI Geomatics is now Catalyst.Earth as of last week. For more information about the introduction of Catalyst.Earth as a new PCI Geomatics brand, please attend our company profile session during GeoWeek on November 4th at 2:30 p.m. South African time. Just one moment, I'm having difficulties getting to my next slide. Just a moment.
Arnold, I think you might need to share screen to be able to do that. We've got your video up.
No, I'm just going to speak to my
Okay.
my notes.
All right. Okay. Great.
So the case study that I like to expose on the topic of private sector collaboration is a project that we are just now finishing with SANSA, the South African Space Agency. At the start, multiple public organizations and NGOs collaborated to create an ecosystem for using EO data. I'd like to start with the contribution of the Australian Government Geoscience Australia, who pioneered the use of open EO data at moderate resolution for national multi-departmental use, created Australia Geoscience Data Cube, and developed some open source algorithms such as water observations from space. NASA picked up the Data Cube software and put it into the open source community and called it the Open Data Cube. The Committee on Earth Observation Satellites, or CEOS, has created a framework for the processing and organization of EO data that are formalized into a form that allows immediate analysis with other EO data and through time. They call this specification CARD for L, or CEOS Analysis Ready Data for Land. Next, the contribution of GEO itself through annual meetings, side events, and an ongoing work program. GEO has created a venue for or mechanism for collaboration, diffusion of best practices, and cooperation to take place. Finally, I finished with SANSA, the South African National Space Agency, being an active participant in GEO. The virtual hosts of a participant with a South African government and an active participant in GEO, who saw the opportunity to leverage their own data plus the Open Data Cube to expose their data to the general betterment of citizens and organizations in South Africa. So first to the problem, SANSA has been collecting spot data for decades. Most of the data are or were offline, residing on tapes and offline disks. Their investment in past collection and future commitments must be justified. The data are not usable or even accessible in their current form or then current form when we started the project. The opportunity is to expose the data to the user community via the Open Data Cube, allowing time series analysis using open source applications, as I said, such as Australia Geoscience's water observations from space, or WAFs. The need and framework was a highly automated solution to produce ARD from their large spot archive, consisting of roughly 1 million images for the eventual export and population to what I'm calling now the SANSA Data Cube, based on Open Data Cube technology. The solution was a PCI product called GXL Satellite. We developed this solution for spot sensors 1 to 7 for SANSA to reprocess their entire archive to CARD for L level. Specialized workflow development for spot data and configuration, system delivery, and especially training for SANSA staff. This was an iterative development, delivery, training, and capacity development project, not just delivery of a product, but capacity development. I'd like to speak to the innovations that enabled the collaboration. First, while the commercial contract is between PCI Geomatics and SANSA, it took a village. As previously described, multiple players each played a part. Australia Geoscience, NASA, CEOS, GEO itself, and finally PCI and SANSA. Well, it's always this way with development of technologies. We all stand on the shoulders of giants that have come before us. This seems to me like a fairly tight circle of organizations, each doing their part. Next, the technology to produce analysis-ready data from medium resolution sensors is not new. It was pioneered by the likes of the United States Geological Survey for the Landsat program and the European Space Agency for the Sentinel-2 satellites. Harmonizing multiple commercial sensors, 7 different spot satellites, is new, and as such, it is an innovation in and of itself. But it took a meeting of the minds between SANSA and PCI to see how it could be done and turn it into an operational system. So I want to move now to the broader benefits. SANSA will provide and expose high quality and highly accurate analysis-ready data based on spot data that can be used for multi-temporal scientific problem solving for South Africa and the rest of Southern Africa. As such, SANSA will be able to create a platform which, limited only by their license agreement with Airbus, who license the reception of spot data, will allow government entities and companies that service them to create and distribute value-added products to internal and external end users. This will create a platform for scientific problem solving, the asking and answering of known questions, the formulation of questions not yet known, the development of businesses selling their services to multiple government agencies based upon the Spot Data Cube, and the development of products and services to the private sector, to businesses and the public based upon information that might be derived from the Spot Data-based Data Cube. An example might be a water, no water time series map for all of the reservoirs and lakes of Southern Africa that might serve as an early warning system for drought-induced water shortage. The intermediate product that SANSA will create when they have finished the population of the data cube with spot analysis ready data is a platform. The broader benefits are yet to come. With that, I'd like to finish. I'd like to pass it back to you, Lee.
Arnold, I really enjoyed that, and I can see that you've applied your mind to the broader benefits and collaborations. We'll check if there are any questions that come up further, but just something I'll throw in for you to reflect on a bit, and we can come back to it at the end. And that is, is there a mechanism in which the broader community, particularly SMMEs, which would be able to access this data through the SANSA Open Data Cube and use that for other projects and initiatives? So just think on that a little bit, and when we come back to the questions and answer sessions, we can maybe pick that up again. But thank you so much for those inputs. And I think with that, I'd like to then move on to the next discussion, or the next set of inputs from Alex from Maxar, who will then talk to us about some of the high-res satellite imagery. Alex, over to you.
Thanks, Lee, and good morning, afternoon, evening to all of the guests that have joined this geoindustry track. So I'm Alex Fortescue. I'm responsible for sales and BD in the Africa region, not actually the Middle East, correction, Lee. Maxar, some of you might know Maxar, which incorporates Digital Globe. So that's Maxar was only really formulated in the last 2 years. It incorporates SSL, formerly known as Space Systems Loral, our Palo Alto manufacture facility. We're really the global leader of advanced geospatial and space-based technology solutions. We unlock the promise of space for government and commercial markets, and we've got decades of experience in developing infrastructure. We operated Iconos and QuickBird, for those of you that are familiar with those early sensors in the 2000s. Worldview 4, which failed 2 years ago, and currently operate Worldview 1, 2, and 3 with GOI 1. These are very high resolution satellites, sub 50 centimeter, and we're very excited next year to launch our new Legion constellation of 630 centimeter satellites that will allow unprecedented revisit, up to 50 times revisit per day, which I think you'll agree is something that is going to probably revolutionize the industry. So I already wanted to talk today about our collaboration with government agencies, in specifically census agencies. Now, a lot of the collaboration is typical commercial, but I already wanted to talk about some developments that we've invested in with respect to cloud-based solutions, how it's enabled some free data sets that are specifically useful for census, but many other applications too. So let me start by saying that about 5 years ago, Maxar, Digital Globe at the time, embarked on a technology strategy to take its entire archive, that was 100 petabytes of data spanning 2000 to present, including the 2 million square kilometers that we acquire daily. And instead of housing it in our data center in Denver, we put that on the Amazon cloud. And for the first time, this data was now unlocked. People could access our entire archive without having to, order an image and have it delivered via an FTP site, on-demand access, if you like. Now, typically for census agencies, we've got a portal called Secure Watch. That portal allows access either through our portal or directly via WMTS services or WMS services into the Census Agency's front-end application, and creates massive cost savings. Instead of now having to fly massive, expensive aerial photography campaigns, we're seeing savings of an order of magnitude, if not two, in provisioning this data. Yes, it's commercial. It's typically through a subscription, and that subscription is through a data allocation for streaming or download of data, but makes very efficient use of that data for the typical activities of census, enumerator area updating. The data also allows for AI technologies to apply it to the multispectral content online. And this has seen some huge developments in the types of data that we can extract, and also the scale that we can do that and the speed that we can do that. So for example, we created 2019 mosaics of the entire Africa, and through donor funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation with other partners, we were able to extract through our own partner network building footprints for each and every building on the continent of Africa. And that product was competed. Yes, it's available commercially, but Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation were able to extract or aggregate some of those data sets. One of those is a 100-meter grid over the entire continent of Africa that counts the number of buildings from this derived building product, and also creates settlement extent products. So there is a resource currently available at no cost online that census agencies are accessing, which come from our cloud solutions and commercially pulling our data for their census mapping applications. So that's really just one way that I wanted to discuss sort of the NGO type environments, commercial or industry, if you like, and government agencies, and how we collaborate, so to speak. Before I end, I just wanted to punt the Space Technology Challenge that we launched with SANZA and ZA Space, with Reese as the implementing agency. I believe that the shortlisted, this was a Pan-African Space Tech Challenge, winners gets access to some of our online solutions. I believe that 7 or 8 of those shortlisted applicants will be presenting in the industry track tomorrow afternoon, so I'd encourage you all to listen to that and just to demonstrate really our commitment to human capacity development on the continent. Thank you, Lee. Back to you.
Great. Alex, thank you so much. I know that, if we just think now, we might take for granted access to data through cloud infrastructure, but I think it really was probably cutting edge at the time, putting those huge petabytes of data online and available through cloud infrastructure, was without a doubt talking to this innovation aspect that sits in this collaboration stream. I think just a quick thought again to kind of keep in the back of your mind, if you can come back to this, and that is, you've explained how you've been able to create the sort of enhanced data product that is accessible and available to, for example, census agencies. I was wondering if you could maybe come back to, what are the kind of ideas or mechanisms that are available for access in under-resourced areas? You do find a situation where you don't always have great bandwidth, great connectivity. So if any thoughts and ideas on how that data can, or how you could enhance the access to this novel data product that's been created. But thanks for that. And I think definitely another mechanism, because we've kind of heard 3 now in the course of this discussion. The one is around the open data cubes. The second one is around making high resolution data available through cloud access, as well as enhanced data products. And I think the third one is running innovation challenges which encourage uptake and utilization in a broader kind of space ecosystem. So thanks for that. With that, I think maybe quickly, I also want to welcome Gilles Ollier from the European Commission onto the panel. Gilles, thank you, welcome. And with that, I want to then hand over to Dr. Nkuruzezi from ArtCMRD to take us through some of the activities that the regional center has been running, particularly on the continent in East Africa. And I know that they put a lot of emphasis into broad SMME participation in some of their mapping activities. DG, over to you.
Thank you so much, Lee. Greetings to everybody from Nairobi. It's a pleasure to be part of this session on industry and the application of Earth observation on the continent. So as introduced, my name is Emmanuel Nkurunziza. the Director General of the Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development. It's an intergovernmental organization based here in Nairobi, formed 45 years ago by ECA and OAU at the time. It brings together countries within the Eastern and Southern African region. At the moment, we have 20 member states, all the way from Sudan and Ethiopia to the Republic of South Africa. So at the formation in the early 70s, the idea was to have a center of excellence that can really help neuro-independent African countries utilize surveying, mapping, and remote sensing at the time to be able to map and manage the natural resources and use them in their national development agenda. So that's why it was originally called the Regional Center for Services in Surveying, Mapping, and Remote Sensing. So it has evolved over time, but the mandate remains the same, and the mandate is really to promote sustainable development in member states by generation and dissemination of geoinformation and other ICT related information. So it is based here in Nairobi, and in discharging our responsibility or mandate to these member states, we do so through a number of channels, principally through project implementation. And that's why at times we tend to straddle between being a public sector entity and also undertaking activities that are associated with more private sector organizations. Because in execution, we do run contracts for execution of Earth observation related projects in our member states. I think Alex has just mentioned work they do in census mapping. A few years ago in 2018, we were involved with the government of Malawi in doing enumeration mapping, and we were using really products supplied by Alex and group, where we're trying to see how we can use satellite imagery in enumeration mapping for the census the government of Malawi conducted. So that was successfully conducted, and they were able to run the census at really reduced cost as a result of using these satellite imagery. And because of that success, the government engaged us further to do the mapping of their traditional land management areas, which was done in a record time, again, without having to go and set total stations and pick point by point, but using satellite imagery to map all the traditional management areas in the country. So on the basis of that, they are now engaged in piloting the registration of their customary estates. Again, we have come in as an organization to help them develop a mobile data collection application that can be able to capture the boundaries of these customary estates and so for eventual titling and registration. So that's one example of how we support member states through actual project implementation that would associate normally with private sector contractors. The other channel through which we support is through capacity building, and that's really the main reason we are here. As a center of excellence, we are supposed to be backstopping the national institutions in terms of competences within this area. Our field of Earth observation and geospatial technologies is developing very rapidly and offering opportunities we never dreamt would be possible just a few years ago. So the only way we can be able to partake what is on offer is if we can be able to build the capacities. So every year, we normally have what we call governing council meetings. We'll be having one next week. And during those meetings, we bring together the heads of mapping agencies in these countries with principal secretaries of their ministries. One of the things they present are what we call country reports. And in the country reports, they are able to show us what their needs are, whether in terms of data, in terms of capacities. So we sit down and work out what we are able to supplement. So I'm sure they'll come with a number of needs of areas where we need to support their capacity. So we draw a program during the course of the year to provide training in GNSS computations, for example, in accessing open source data and processing. So that's the the capacity. So they are both short-term trainings for already technical staff within ministries in these governments, and long-term training offering diplomas and certificates in different areas of Earth observations. So that's on the training. Then on that, we also offer advisory. Advisory might come from the projects we do, but these member states also come to us regularly to ask us on advice on new technologies. So very often, of course, and that's where we do a middleman or go between commercial companies and governments to try and advise, for example, governments on what equipment is appropriate for what tasks. So sometimes we are even brought on board to procure certain services. We were involved, for example, with the government of Botswana when they were establishing their core system. So we were there to help them identify the right specifications and procure the right sets for implementation within the country. So we can also advise on the right configuration of the networks if they are going to establish them. So that's on the advisory side. So they normally come to us and say, this is the problem. We want to engage ABC. These are the options. So using the technical expertise available, what is the best way to go? Then, of course, we also do research. We do research to inform certain issues that are existing in these countries. So in terms of a specific involvement with the private sector, of course, as a center, we believe that for the continent, for the African continent to benefit from what is offered by developments in Earth observation, the private sector must take a lead. And at every opportunity, we try and see how we can be able to promote this. I'll just cite again one or two examples where we are involved in working with the private sector to ensure governments benefit from Earth observations. We have a project we are running for the African Union Commission, of course, supported by the European Union, which is GMS and Africa. Under the project, there was specific or deliberate attention to private sector, where 20% of the budget is dedicated to private sector. So we recently engaged, again, looking at the needs of the members of the countries where the project is operating. We put out an invitation for private sector companies within our region to provide certain solutions. So we've just concluded work with 4 companies, 2 from Uganda and 2 from Kenya. And they were looking at a number of things. One was looking at a model for wetland monitoring. We realized there are issues of monitoring wetland vulnerability. So this company was able to undertake a study, come up with a model, test it, and then we are making it available for countries in monitoring their own wetlands. Then the other one was working on socioeconomic evaluation of, again, of wetlands. There was another one also working on wind erosion modeling. I mean, we have a number of countries, especially towards the northeast, where wind erosion is a key factor in land degradation. But governments don't have the capacity to be able to really model it, measure it, and then be able to mitigate it. So a methodology and tool for undertaking this activity was given to a local company here called Locate IT. They did the work and worked with government officers in these countries, and they were able to provide a solution. Finally, many of you might be aware of our long-standing engagement with the NASA in the US under the program called Seville, which has been running for over 10 years now. So under that program, we've been having what we call a small grants program. And with that, we were able to fund in the first phase 14 companies, again, to develop Earth observation tools and products for member states. So we got companies from all the way, Namibia, Botswana, Kenya, Tanzania, Seychelles, and these are products that were tailored to the needs we had identified from the requirements of these countries. There's another round of 9 projects that is ongoing, again for private sector. So the point is to see how this can be able to go.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. I'm just keeping an eye on the time, but thank you so much for all of those inputs. I think we may get some questions where you can elaborate a little bit further. But I think what you've really highlighted, which is incredibly valuable, is the role of an intergovernmental subject matter expert who essentially plays the role of facilitator between its member states, as well as bringing in kind of an unbiased view and facilitating broader collaboration. So thank you for the inputs that you've provided on that. It was incredibly valuable. I think with that, I'd like to then call on Mr. Zinpei to come in and explain and talk about his company's projects in China in particular. Zin, over to you.
Thanks, Lee. Hi, everyone. I'm Zhen Pei from SenseTime, the product manager in remote sensing unit business unit. So I would like to share the screen too. I got some slide to share with you guys. So wait a minute. I need to.
Jin, we're not seeing your screen yet, so if you can just get your share screen up in some way. Like we've lost Zin. He seems to have dropped. His connection's dropped. So maybe just to keep the flow and in the essence of time, I'll then hand over to Gilles. Let me see if Zin's coming back on. No, okay. So
Yes,
Gilles,
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You can take on, and I think when Zin comes back in, we'll
Great.
continue with his
Thank you.
part.
Hear me?
Okay. Yep. Zin, we've got you back. Okay.
I'm sorry, something wrong with my computer. So.
All right.
Okay,
Your screen is sharing.
Yeah, very appreciate having such a chance to be here, and it's really an honor for me to talk with experts in geo industry like you guys. So I would like to start with a brief introduction about my company. So as you may know, that SenseTime is a computer vision company focusing on providing leading artificial intelligence solutions for our business partners. We started from the multimedia lab of Chinese University of Hong Kong 5 years ago. We are very young. But before that, we got much more than 20 years of solid research foundation. And we also have more than 200 AI PhD, including 40 professors and more than 2,000 researchers and engineers. We also is the top 3 in terms of paper published related to computer vision industry. And now we are valued at over $7.7 billion US. That's a big number. So in last 2 years, we started to try leveraging our AI power into Earth observation industry. And now we can detect cars, aircraft, vessels, road networks, and different types of land use like water surface, farming land, forest, grassland, a lot of things. And we got more than 20 types of algorithms to detect the targets from satellite or aerial imageries. So combined with some branches of this algorithm together, we can make some impacts in different scenarios. And I would like to show you some cases with local government. As you may know, that the government is the main player in using Earth observation data in China. And one of the business scenario is that they need to do the geoinformation survey. The government officials need to know what the changes in a national land use situation every year and make the urban plan based on time series data. So, but the governor cannot scan satellite imagery or every imagery by himself very carefully because it takes a lot of time. So what they usually do is relying on some people they asked to do the survey based on satellite imageries. This will cause some troubles like fraud, inefficient response, and definitely very high cost of labor. So, what if the governor can got a system to automatically classify the composition of urban land and generate the report yearly or even monthly? The efficiency and accuracy will dramatically increase. So that's a SenseTime provide to our local government. It is a low-cost system which can generate 10 types of land use data from satellite imageries, which resolution is about 3 meters. And we help local governments to better understand the composition of urban land in much more efficiency. And accuracy perspective. This is a satellite imagery map of Shanghai. We can clearly see where there is an urban area. The purple part is the urban area, and the green part is the farming land, and the blue part is the riverside. And this satellite imagery map is generated by our artificial intelligence algorithms. And usually this part of work need to human to do, and it maybe takes a couple of weeks. But right now we only need 1 or 2 hours. Also, there is some other city map generated by our algorithms, and combine this different city maps together, the central government in China can make some urban plan in the future. So exactly, we also, in order to help the governor better understand the capabilities of artificial intelligence in these business scenarios, we also built a supercomputing center and a training platform for them. They can expand new business scenarios just based on our technologies. For example, if they want to detect some other objects, just like cars, they don't need to ask our models anymore. They just train their models in our system and just follow our instructions. So as a new player in Geo, since time opens some our algorithms online, we got a website called Sensors. It's an open geospatial analysis platform online, which can be accessed by anyone. And if you wanna try some our algorithms, if you wanna generate some data using your own satellite imagery, you can just upload your imagery and click the button, and you got the result you want. And also, if some small company, they don't have the AI power, they don't have sufficient data, they can just use the API to implement the algorithm into their own system to expand their own business scenarios. And what is more, SenseTime also plans to open some worldwide land use data, maybe more than 30 or 40 cities, generated by AI algorithms, like the satellite imagery map I mentioned before. And the reason why we do it is because we hope to help much more people who do not have sufficient data to do the experiment or analysis work. So what I try to convey is that with computer vision power, we can reshape the workflow in a traditional industry and free much more resources and reduce less costs than our imagine. So that's exactly what the public sectors, public officials want to do. And just like the geo-information serving cases I mentioned, in old days, the officers need to travel a lot to make sure what happens in their monitor land. And right now, they just can sit at their office and watch the cell phone or maybe just the iPad to know what happened, and using this most advanced technology. So that's I want to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those inputs. It's really amazing to see the work that your company has done. And I think, again, in the spirit of collaboration and innovation, what we're seeing is, even though your company has got a long history of capabilities, as a young entrant, collaborating with the public sector on a pretty difficult problem, is creating this opportunity for advanced digital technologies to be infused and hence broadening the capability base. So thank you for those inputs. I then want to quickly hand over to Gilles, who will then take us through some of the European Commission's sort of enabling initiatives that foster and encourage public-private collaboration at a global level. Gilles, over to you.
Hi, Lee. Hi, everybody. I'm going to try to share my 2 slides.
See it coming up?
Yeah.
Yet.
So. Okay. Maybe I don't know. I don't need those slides. Huh? Okay. Can you hear me still?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
I would like to, yeah, I would like to provide you some highlights on the role of the public and the private sector in delivering Earth observation products and services. And the discussion on how to establish synergies with the commercial sector within GEO is still going on. With the recognition that GEO must remain a governmental initiative, while the commercial sector is essential to deliver products and services building on Earth observation. And establishing this delicate balance requires probably that the GEO members fulfill several conditions. And the first condition I would like to refer to is probably related to regulatory frameworks enabling the cooperation so that we have, for instance, an open data policy, which is essential, but also an open competition with an agile commercial sector. Then another element is that there is a need of a support from the public sector to key infrastructure. We try to do it in Europe, and we share, for instance, the Sentinel Earth observation infrastructure with the rest of the world. Then, another condition is that we need a strong research and innovation effort, and which is supported by the government, enabling innovation, including pre-competitive procurement. The other point is that the development of the market, of course, can take through public incentive, like public procurement, but it is also needed that initiatives from the commercial sector are conducted, delivering services and products and addressing citizen needs. Then another element is the role of large policy initiatives, such as the Green Deal in Europe, which is driving the development of new products and services, greener and addressing directly citizen needs, which provides a new direction for the commercial sector. And last but not the least, the consultation of the commercial sector and users is needed at the onset of public program development. Now, I would like to move on to some Europe highlights. To refer to a few examples in Europe that are attempts to fulfill those conditions. The first highlight I want to refer to is the Copernicus program. It's typically a model of a joint venture between the private sector and the public sector, because the large infrastructure are funded by the public sector, like the Sentinel constellation, for instance, whereas the Copernicus services are contracted out to commercial firms. Again, the Copernicus in this context of GEO is fully open to the world. A second example I want to take in Europe is we have a major research program, the framework program Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe. And this is a well-supported program at the level of the EU, facilitating innovation through public-private projects and partnership. The framework program is also open to the world. And in this context, for instance, we support the EuroGeo initiatives that aims to develop prototypes, products, Earth observation products, and services close to the users, supported by several Horizon 2020 projects. We pay a specific attention to the involvement of the citizen and to the consultation of the citizen in projects, enabling their empowerment in the monitoring and observation of their environment. And a last point I would like to make is that we make a specific effort through the new Horizon 2020 Green Deal call, which is something like 1 billion investment, which aims to deliver research and innovation and solutions necessary to the achievement of the Green Deal, and is driving the development of green products and sustainable approaches building on big data, including Earth observation, and involving citizens and the commercial sector. So it's in a nutshell what I wanted to say, and I hope it gives you a flavor of what we are opening for collaboration in Europe at international level. Thank you, Lee, and thank you, colleagues.
So much for those inputs. And I think what we've really got from your side, reflecting on the European Commission, is how from a public sector point of view, at a global level, you're creating enabling mechanisms through various space programs for public-private collaboration, and that those programs actually are enabling collaboration and participation at a regional level. I want to maybe pause I want to thank you all again for your inputs. I don't really see any questions coming up on the question channel, so maybe we can. We've got about a minute or two left, so I'll just quickly touch on maybe one question, and I'll come back to maybe Arnold if you have just a moment to reflect on, how's the Open Data Cube being utilized or made available to a broader community. If you just spend 30 seconds just giving us an answer on that, and then we'll sum up to try to close on time.
So that question is for me, is it, Lee?
Yes, Arnold, thanks.
Yeah. So thank you for the question. As I indicated in my presentation, the SANS is in the process of reprocessing their entire archive with the tools that we've delivered and built capacity to populate the data cube. The access to that data cube will continue to be limited by the Airbus license and preceding CANES license that governs the use of the spot data. And it's my understanding that access will be for government and private sector organizations who support government. However, derived products can be distributed to whomever. So for example, a water, no water time series map might be a derived product that would be created in the data cube and then distributable to any and all that by SANSA policy might gain access to it. So this is the question that you've asked is a good one. The answer is, I would say, pending, and I would defer to my colleagues and collaborators at SANSA for that
Thanks.
answer.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all the panelists. So in a nutshell, I think we've covered a few very interesting use cases, but I think it was the underlying messages which were quite important. Number one, advanced digital technologies and that adoption, things like the Open Data Cube, moving data onto the cloud, running innovation challenges, as well as the usage of AI and using public sector kind of programs and projects to stimulate the development of those technologies. And I think the other point being that when we look at it from either a public sector or from an organization that is broadly supported by the public sector, how they create enabling mechanisms, be it through facilitation, be it through almost pushed collaboration that brings SMMEs as well as different organizations together to drive benefit. Without a doubt, it shows me that there is still a very vibrant collaboration culture that's going on, and these collaborations are further enhancing the adoption of technologies, and it flows both ways. Whether it's a public sector organization that's using it for broader socio-economic benefits, but also where the companies are able to deepen their capabilities and use those capabilities to push further products and innovations into the market. So I want to thank you all again for your inputs. They were very valuable. I'm sure that the participants would have derived a great deal of benefit from your views and from your insights. And with that, we've consumed all of the time for this particular panel discussion. And I thank you again, Arnold, probably way past your bedtime or very, very early for breakfast. But thank you so much. And to all of the panelists, enjoy the rest of your respective days, evenings, and mornings.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Lee. Bye-bye.
Bye.